What's up, YouTube? In this video, we're going to be covering the 5 biggest mistakes for you to avoid after you reach the huge milestone of $100,000 in your investment portfolio. These are mistakes I've seen a lot of people make over the years after reaching this important milestone, and I want to make sure that you avoid them. So we're going to walk through these mistakes in some detail in our video today. Quick intro before we dive in. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jose Hernandez. I have an online financial education company that serves first-generation wealth builders, people like you and me. People are the first person in their family to start investing or think about investing, and my mission is to help you reach your goal of financial freedom and or build generational wealth for your family. Started my career in the wealth management industry as a financial advisor, where I got my Series 7 and 66 licenses, worked with wealthy individuals, got mentorship from some of the top financial advisors in the country, and eventually decided to move on and start my own financial education company that served thousands of first-generation wealth builders across the world. So let's go ahead and dive in. Again, we're talking about the 5 biggest mistakes to avoid after you hit that $100,000 in your investment portfolio. Mistake number 1, not paying attention to investment fees. This is important whether you have $1 invested or $1 million invested, because over time, as your wealth continues to compound, so do the fees that you're paying. And there's all sorts of fees that we need to pay attention to inside of our investment portfolio. I'm going to make a separate video on that at some point in time. But the biggest one usually is asset under management fees, which is usually like a percentage of the money that you have invested, a percentage of your returns basically going to fees. And I started off my career in a situation where usually households that had around $250,000 invested, the fee was 1.5%. And over time, that amount can really stack up, especially as that amount continues to compound. Of course, there's other fees to keep in mind, like trading fees, commissions, sales loads on mutual funds, things of that nature. But the biggest one for sure are expense ratios associated with the investments that you own in your portfolio, and also management fees. When it comes to management fees, there is a time and place where it can become more appropriate, specifically if you have maybe $1 million or multi-million dollar portfolio and that expense ratio is, or that management fee rather, is a smaller percentage, and it makes a lot more sense financially for you to pay it, especially if you're getting value from whatever service that you're paying for. But in the building stages, and if you're still at that 100,000 mark, you're still at the wealth building stage, it's important to keep as much money in your portfolio as possible so you don't slow down that process of compounding. So let me share a quick story with you. This is the story of Simon, one of my first clients that I brought on and students after I moved on from the financial industry. And Simon is a busy person, sales professional, has a family, working man, all that good stuff. And he always felt like, I just don't feel like I know enough or have the time to learn about this stuff, so I'm going to let someone else manage my portfolio for me. And he had someone that was charging him around 1.7% in his portfolio to have it managed, and he wasn't really getting any value from it besides just being placed in a couple of investments. And after some time, Simon decided, let me get educated on this stuff and let me figure out like what I'm actually paying. He thought that 1.7 didn't really sound like a big deal when he first, started to use that service. But after time and after getting educated and work with me, he ran the numbers with me and we had this conversation together. And this was a huge brain, like a mind, what, if I can't cuss on here, but a big mind, to him when he saw these numbers. Because if Simon didn't change anything else over the lifetime of his investing in his lifetime, he would have paid over $1 million just to investment fees. And that's $1 million that could have went to his family, it could have went to a vacation home, it could have went to whatever he wanted to, because it was his money at the end of the day. But excuse me, this is why it's so important for you to pay attention to the fees inside of your investment portfolio. Again, that is things like expense ratios associated with the investments that you own. It can be management fees, it can be all sorts of fees, but it's super important, especially at the 100K mark and beyond, to be knowledgeable about this. Mistake number 2, not paying attention to taxes in your portfolio. So as your wealth continues to grow, as your income continues to grow, it becomes more and more important for you to understand how taxes work and how to minimize the impact that taxes can have on your wealth. Because like inflation, it can be kind of like a silent killer that really deteriorates the value of your portfolio and also how much money you have at the end of the day, because that's the point of investing, is to be able to build enough wealth to achieve very specific goals. And what a lot of people don't realize is taxes can actually have a massive impact on their portfolio's returns. Let me show you what I mean. So this is a study that was done by Morningstar that shows the impact that taxes can have on your portfolio. And over almost 100-year period, they estimated that the impact that taxes could have on stock market returns was close to around 2%. And the impact that it had on bond returns after taxes was also around that 2%. Excuse me. So that 2%, similar to like the investment fee that my student Simon was paying, doesn't sound like a big percentage, right? But we have to understand that the impact of that can be massive. So let me show you something here. This is a concept called tax drag, and this is something I educate all my clients and students on because it's very, very important for you to understand. Tax drag is just a fancy way of saying the impact that taxes have on your portfolio's returns. So it's basically taking your returns minus the impact of taxes, and that's basically your net return. So this is an example of someone that had $500,000 invested, and over this time period, over a period of 10 years, they're able to achieve hypothetically an average rate of return of 7.5%, and they're not adding any additional money to their portfolio. If there's no impact on taxes, there's no tax drag, that $500,000 compounds to over $1 million. However, if they lose 1% of those returns to taxes, they only end up with $939,000. And if they lose 2% of their returns to taxes, which again, we just saw is on par with history, they only end up with $854,000. So $854,000 versus $1 million. You tell me, which one would you rather have? So this is why it's so important to pay attention to taxes. Mistake number 3, getting too greedy. And this is one that I see all too often. Charlie Munger has that quote that says, the first $100,000 is, you know what? Again, I don't want to cuss on here, but it's true. You have to work really hard to reach this $100,000 mark, and you should feel very good about yourself if you've been able to stay consistent and grind it out to get to this point. But a mistake I've seen people make over the years is they start getting greedy. They're like, okay, well, if I can get this $100,000 to like 10x in 1 year, I'll have, I don't know, $1 million or something crazy like that, right? And that's not the right type of thinking when it comes to building long-term wealth. Because what a lot of people don't realize is after your portfolio continues to grow and compound steadily, you don't necessarily need crazy returns for your money to continue to grow. Because remember, the first stage of our investing journey, the accumulation phase, is really about building our portfolio's principles so our money can really start to make money for us. And we don't need 50, 100% returns at that stage because now we have the power of compounding working for us. And if you try to get too greedy and switch from that mentality that got you to the 100,000, now you're trying to like day trade your way to $1 million overnight, or buy these crazy penny stocks or something like that, you are really setting yourself up for failure. So there's a concept that I teach all my clients and students. It's called portfolio drawdown, which is a fancy way of saying how much your portfolio can lose in value if it drops in value. Maybe there's a stock market crash, or maybe certain investments in your portfolio tanks. What a lot of people don't realize is as your wealth continues to grow, it's not just about how much money you can make. It's also about how much you can limit the impact of big losses in your portfolio. Said another way, it's also about not losing a ton of money, because huge losses in your portfolio can obviously set you back, in some cases years, and sometimes it is really difficult to recover from substantial losses in your portfolio. And the funny thing about it is you didn't have to put yourself in that position in the first place, because remember, your money is now working for you. For example, 10% on $1,000 is $100, but 10% on $100,000 is $10,000. It's the same percentage return, but it's a lot more money that you end up with simply because that portfolio principal is bigger. And as the gains get bigger, so do the losses. Let me show you another example of this. So this is a chart showing us the percentage gain that we need to break even from a loss. And a lot of people think, well, if I lose 50%, I just need to make 50% from there to break even. And that's not true, because that's not how compounding works. Compounding can actually be a double-sided sword. So for example, if you lose 10%, you need to make an 11% return from that point in time to break even. But as you'll see, the bigger the loss is, the greater the return that you need from that point in time in order to break even. And this is why it's so important to eliminate or reduce the potential for catastrophic losses in your portfolio. So a 20% loss requires a 25% return to break even. A 40% loss requires a 67% return to break even. A 50% loss requires a 100% return to break even. And as you continue to see, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. higher, like a 70% loss requires a 233% return from that point in time to break even. So the key here is we need to avoid the temptation to get greedy. Investing is a long-term game, and it's okay if it feels boring. If it feels boring, you're probably doing something right. But this is not money that you're trying to play around with. That $100,000 you had to work hard to build, and it's your job and it's your responsibility to continue to grow it in a responsible fashion. Mistake number 4, letting your foot off the gas. So there's this concept of coast fire that I see on social media quite a bit, and I get it, right? It's the idea that after your portfolio reaches a certain amount, you can stop adding money to the portfolio and kind of let it compound and do its thing. And there is some merit to that, but my thing is, why would you stop funding the portfolio if you have the capacity to continue to add money to it? Because after running hundreds and hundreds of financial plans over the years, I can tell you, all else being equal, the more that you fund your investment accounts, the greater your odds of success, right? It can be night and day difference. So if you let off the gas, meaning you kind of just stop funding your investment portfolio, sure, you're going to see that compounding working for you, but you're also not achieving as much wealth creation as you could potentially achieve. And you're also not reaching your goals even sooner. Because again, the point of investing is to build enough wealth to achieve very specific goals. Maybe it's retirement by a certain age. Maybe it's generational wealth for your children, or any combination of those things. So just because you reach that first $100,000 doesn't mean that you have to just stop funding your investment accounts. I know it's a grind getting to that point in time, but if anything, now is the time to double down on this, because again, you're still in this first phase of your investing journey, this accumulation phase. And like I've mentioned time and time again, one of the biggest things that's going to determine your success long-term as an investor, but specifically in this first phase of your investing journey, is how consistent you are in funding your accounts. Because at this stage, you already hit that $100,000. You have that power of compounding working for you. You can speed up that compounding process further by having that snowball effect working for you, and also continuing to grow the value or the balance of your investment accounts. So just because you have that $100,000 to your name in your investment accounts does not mean it's time to let your foot off the gas. And then finally, probably most important of all, especially at this stage, is investing without a clear financial plan that's tied to your goals. This is something that most people don't know about, because most people don't wake up and just say, I need a financial plan to reach my goals. But by far, it's one of the most impactful things you can do if you are serious about reaching very specific goals, whether it's financial independence by a certain age, whether it's passing it down a certain amount of wealth to your children, or whatever it may be. We need to be specific around what the goal is, and we need to be specific around our plan of action to reach that goal. Because what a good financial plan is basically like a GPS for your investments. It tells you where you are right now, point A, and it tells you where you're trying to be, or whatever your goals are in the future, point B. Again, financial independence, generational wealth, whatever that looks like. And a financial plan outlines step by step what you need to do and what you need to achieve to reach point B on time. Just like a good GPS tells you what you need to do, the instructions, the directions that you need to follow when you're on the road to reach your destination. So with a financial plan, this helps you understand, how much do I need to be investing? How much does my money need to be growing by? How do I minimize the impact of taxes? What types of investment accounts make the most sense for me to fund? How do I limit the impact of big losses in my portfolio? And so on and so forth. So after you reach this $100,000 threshold in your investments, I definitely think it's extremely important to start thinking more strategically around what you're actually trying to accomplish with this money, because otherwise you're never going to know. Are you investing enough? Do you own the right investments? Are you going to have enough wealth? Are you on track to reaching your goals? It's literally impossible to answer any of those questions without a clear financial plan. And this is just a quick screenshot of what the basics of part of the financial plan can look like. This is an example from one of my clients, and it outlines all the different types of investment accounts they have, the current investment account balance, how much they need to be contributing to their investment accounts. And all these different factors are tied to very specific goals. In this case, financial independence by a certain age, and also building generational wealth for their kids. So if you're investing without a financial plan at this stage, you're kind of just like in the dark. You don't know if you're investing enough. You don't know if you're on track. You don't know how much wealth you need to build, and you need to change that. Because if you are serious, and it's not just a matter of like you're putting money away and hoping for the best. If you are serious about reaching very specific goals, you need to have a specific plan of action and a specific strategy to reach those goals on time. So that's why having a plan is very important. So next steps, if you're still watching this video, if you feel like you need help making sure that you are on track to reaching whatever your goals are that you're investing for, whether it's that financial independence by a certain age, whether it's building generational wealth for your family, or any combination of those things, but you're not sure if you're doing it correctly, or maybe you haven't even started and need help getting started, or any combination of those things. The next steps are simple. In the description to this video, you're going to see a link where you can schedule a one-on-one call with myself. We can sit down, speak more about your situation, your goals, some of the things you're doing, and that way I can point you in the right direction. So the link to that is in the description to this video. But I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give it a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel. That's going to be all for me in this video. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.